We've changed rooms, so it looks a little different. We're going on now to topic 3 of chapter 5, multiplying polynomials. So as we look at example 1, this is sort of a monomial times a monomial. That's what we're doing for these first 3 examples. And then later, we start moving into multiplying a monomial by a binomial where we will distribute. So what's the technique here? Well, the technique would be to multiply the numbers and then add up your exponents. And again, watching the signs here, it's going to be a -7 times this decimal, and that's going to be a -1.4. Add up your exponents, x to the 7th. Here again, we're watching the signs. Negative times negative makes it a positive, so we don't have to worry about the sign anymore. Now, again, there's nothing that we could cancel out. So this is going to be 2 27ths. Keeping in mind there's a 1 there, we add our exponents, x to the 6th. Now remember, this is in the numerator. Don't ever put it in the denominator, because they would count that wrong. Now as we go on to example 4, again, we're just distributing what we did earlier, back in chapter 2 a little bit, but now the variables have exponents. This is 5 times 2 is 10. X to the 1st times x to the 3rd, x to the 4th, and then plus 30x. Now as we continue, again, we're going to multiply here a binomial by a binomial. Now later, we're going to use a method that's called FOIL, which is just an acronym for first, outers, inners, last. But here we'll do this in a more traditional way, because we're going to tie this into something else. So we take the first member of our first binomial and times it by the second. Then the second member of our first binomial and times it by the second. Notice we have now a common factor here in which we've multiplied these two. Because later, by the way, we're going to reverse a lot of this, which we call factoring. But right now, we're doing the multiplication. So this becomes 6x squared. This becomes a -15x, a positive 4x, and a -10. Now you'll notice in the middle, we end up with 2 like terms, so eventually this will become a 6x squared. We combine these like terms, -11x minus 10. So by multiplying these 2 binomials, we ended up with a trinomial. Later in the chapter, we're going to take this trinomial and factor it back into this up here. Right now in multiplying, it's a little easier because there's no guesswork. You just follow the procedure. Now later we'll have a special way of doing this one as well. But right now what you would do is you just write it twice. And again, doing it the same way, 2x times 2x minus y, and then a negative y times 2x minus y. And we then get 4x squared minus 2xy. Here we get a minus 2xy, I'm alphabetizing it, and we get a plus y squared. Now we do have like terms in the middle, so this eventually becomes 4x squared minus 4xy plus y squared. We're going to give you a much shorter way to do this once we deal with what is called special products. For number 7, we could do it the same way. Take this, multiply it by this, take this, multiply it by this. That would be what we call the horizontal way. But my strong suggestion would be always to do this what we call vertically. So let's show you that. And then you put this underneath it here. And the reason for this is that you get like-termed columns that make it much easier to get the correct answer, I think. So 2 times 2 is 4. This is going to be a negative 8t. We have to put the plus there to separate it. And this is going to be a 6t squared. So double checking. Yes. Now, t times this is going to be a positive 2t in the t column. And then this times this will be a negative 4t squared in the t squared column. And then here we get a new term, which is 3t cubed. Now, notice by doing it this way, we get our results as we would multiply this by all of these, but then they're set up in like-term columns. So this will be a plus 4. This is going to be a negative 6t. This will be a 2t squared. And this is a 3t cubed. And that was plus. A review is what's the degree of this expression? Well, it's the highest degree, 3. And what is there a special name for this expression? No, this is called a polynomial. If it only had 3 terms, it would be a trinomial, 2 terms, a binomial, 1 term, a monomial. A little review. Now, as we do example 8, you could set it up and do it horizontally. Quite tedious. So I would think what you're going to do is multiply 2 of these vertically, and you get that. Then you take another one, multiply it vertically, and notice you're keeping your like-term columns all lined up. So it comes out very, very well. But it never hurts to check your work. And, you'll have practice in quiz bees to do that. Well, we did one very similar to this already, but here they're asking you to do the vertical method. And again, that we can line things up vertically into our like-term columns, I think really tends to eliminate possible errors. This one's a little tricky as we do it. Notice that this is x to the 3rd. There is no x to the 2nd. But on this line there is. So here's where we have to take a little care when we do our multiplication. So 1 times 4 is 1. 1 times negative 3 is negative 3x. And 1 times this is a 2x cubed. But notice what I've done, they do in the textbook, they leave a little space for where an x squared might go. And we call that a space holder. Just letting us put, if we had x squares somewhere in a sequence. So now when we do our second line, we get our 4x squared. So if we had jammed it up, there wouldn't be a place for it. So we now have a place for it, and then the rest are straightforward. And notice, since there are no more places, we don't need a placeholder because there's not going to be any more terms, and we just put that there. So now we just add it up. And by the way, when you do this, you can add it from left to right or right to left. I guess most people do it this way. Plus 4 minus 3x. And remember, there is a plus 4x squared. Here, this is just going to be a negative x cubed. You could put a 1 there, but again, we don't usually do that. And then 2x to the 5th.